Well, obviously, we are in a very difficult situation given supply chain issues with regards to feed, climate change issues, which has affected the time it takes to grow the chicken. So, all of these factors have coalesced to create a situation where there was a shortage and also high price in Malaysia. While countries obviously will look to securing their own food requirements, we also are well aware that we have a responsibility as exporters to our neighbors, including Singapore. I feel that the situation is already improving. We are working together very closely with poultry producers in Malaysia to ensure that they can increase production. We are also looking at substitute feed to ensure that we have affordable feed supply for poultry. Once these things resolve itself, and we hope that it can be resolved very quickly, then of course we hope to resume exports of poultry, including to Singapore. We value our bilateral relationship with Singapore. This is not an easy decision for us to make, so we hope that it is very temporary in nature. I'd like to thank Minister Ong Yi Kang. We opened up at the same time. We opened the borders on the 1st of April. Yi Kang was in KL when we decided together that the time was right. We looked at each other's data, we looked at each other's protocols, and there was trust. That was the most important thing. Please don't take this lightly. Singapore and Malaysia, the causeway is one of the busiest land crossings in the world. The air corridor between Changi and KLIA is the busiest air corridor in the world. So it's not a trivial matter to open the border. There were grave implications if we got it wrong. If the epidemiology on one side was not the same as the other, and we opened, then there would be an adverse effect on the other side. So there had to be trust. Yi Kang had to believe what I was reporting was correct, and I had to believe vice versa. So he was in KL, and we made the judgment call. I think it's about the right time. So we briefed our prime ministers on the same day, and PM Ismail and PM Lee announced on the same day. And even after that, we were still in touch, because after we announced the opening of the border, we became what Yi Kang and I term as one epidemiological zone. There's no difference between Singapore and JB, and therefore by extension Malaysia also. Our caseload, you guys clock in at 2,000 to 3,000 a day, we at 1,000 to 2,000 a day, so it's more or less ballpark there. So when we become one epidemiological zone, we still have to coordinate. We can't have a situation where our health protocols are very different. So if you go to Malaysia today, you'll see people masked indoors, mandatory, same. Outdoors, we're the same, it's optional, but so many people mask outdoors as well. Travel protocols are almost the same. We don't need to check in anymore. There's no scanning, there's no checking in. So we compare notes from time to time, because now that we are open, and as you know, the causeway is a busy crossing. Not as busy as before, because I think a lot of people have pivoted to other things, but it could become as busy as it was pre-COVID. But we have a responsibility to one another now, because the borders are open and we're so close. We've had two state elections during the pandemic. Oh, sorry, three state elections during the pandemic. We've had Melaka, we've had Sarawak, and we have had Johor. And Johor is a big state. It's a big state. Johor Bahru, as you know, is a big metropolis. And there was no corresponding increase in the number of cases due to the election. What I'm trying to say is that as far as public health is concerned, we can we can prepare for an election. But at the same time, I don't think one can just look at public health alone. We have to look at the um, entire context of recovery in Malaysia. Malaysia is just recovering, not just public health, but also the economy and people's livelihoods. So, although we are faced with an inflationary environment right now, what we would like to do is to make sure that there is wind in the sails of the recovery first before we think the timing would be right for a general election. Of course, this is entirely the prerogative of the Prime Minister, but what I would like to tell people who are pushing him to have a election is that the Prime Minister said he would not delay 1 second until he feels that we are ready. Readiness means the country needs to be ready, not just in terms of public health. So we have to look out for new variants to make sure that there are new variants, no new waves of infection. Right now it's okay, but I need to be confident that this can sustain. Secondly, that we have wind in the sails of economic recovery, even though we are confronted with some inflationary pressure. But Malaysia is lucky in a sense that we are oil producing country. We have palm oil. So we have some engines of growth that are pushing the economy forward. So we want to get momentum there. And third is political. We need to make sure that BN is ready. It's not just the country is ready and that there's a conducive environment for elections, but BN is ready. Those people who are saying, let's have the election now, I don't think they are the ones who are thinking about preparing the machinery with the resources, with the right people, with the right slate of candidates to contest a general election. It's not a state election. This is general election. This is serious. And I think PM is well aware that we need time to ready ourselves, both the country as well as the party. My message to people, also our party leaders who say we should have election now, pressure the PM for election now, is of course, we respect your views as party leaders, but stay in your lane. Call for an election is Prime Minister's lane. You're not in that lane. You're in another lane. I met with PM, I met with Ikang, I met with Vivian, I met with Lawrence, I met with DPM, Heng Swee Kiat, Josephine. Tomorrow I'm meeting with Shanmugam, with SM Tharman, SM Teo. I've done half the cabinet. And I said to all of them, and I think all of them agreed, all of them did agree, that the relationship between Singapore and Malaysia, Malaysia and Singapore, should not just be one that is technical and official in nature. We can always look at the technical wording of the agreement, but we should go beyond that. It's the personal relationship, understanding the give and take, understanding that yes, there is an agreement, but there can always be a supplementary agreement. There can always be amendments to the original agreement that would take into account the feelings on both sides. We are too close for us to operate in a manner which detaches feelings from one another. We have to take into consideration each other's feelings. And in order to do that, we need to have that personal relationship, which is why I spent a lot of my 4 days here just meeting and reconnecting. Because ultimately, when you have good personal relationship as well as a good professional relationship, you can just call up and come to an agreement and brief the officials that this is what the leaders are acceptable to. And this is what I did with Ikang. I mean, it wasn't the public health officials talking. It was he and I. And it was us with our political judgment to say that this is the time to open. And I think that small analogy of how we work together in the pandemic should extend to other things as well. All the outstanding issues, because together we are much stronger. And in an age of deglobalization, the stronger Singapore, Malaysia is as an anchor to ASEAN, together with Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, and all the other countries, the better we are in terms of getting investments in a time where it's increasingly challenging to compete. Well, the Singapore leaders, when they come to Malaysia, they also meet the opposition. No, seriously, I think the answer is the same. Pritam is yes, he is a MU fan, and Chuan Jin is a Liverpool fan. No, but I think it's important because both sides, our politics, it's becoming more competitive. Even Singapore, WP won in two GRCs last time, and while I think the PAP is still uh, very strong and safe, you are starting to see a lot more diverse representation. For us, of course, we lost at the last election. So, in a situation where there are many more political actors on the scene, it doesn't make sense to just talk to one side. You have to talk to everyone to understand better the pulse on the ground, to understand where the other side is coming from, and to also build relationship with the other side, because even if they won't be the government or they will not win the next election, it's good to get to know a diverse range of views from Singapore and from Malaysia, again because we're so close, so we get to understand better what to expect in the politics of the other country in the next few years.